On this specifically, where do we stand on it, in your opinion, your thoughts on it, and then we'll roll on.
Where do we stand? I can't tell you where we stand. I can only tell you where I stand. Okay. I really don't stand at all on it. You know, that I just really don't know. I mean, it's a voluntary kind of thing. If you want to go, go. If you don't want to go, you don't go. I was telling some woman about it the other day who has a newborn. Well, I'll say newborn. It's about probably 6, 8 months old. And she said, "Oh, I wish my daughter was old enough. I would take her."
But she's an infant.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 to 6, you know. And I do think that 3 to 6 years old is a little bit young to go in there and start telling them, you know, this is what some people do and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know how it's going to work. I just know that some of the ones that I saw last night on the streaming meeting there that I watched, I thought was some very interesting comments. One of them got up there and used the word several times that you hardly ever hear used in normal conversation. That's queer. And he said, "I'm queer and all my queer friends and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah." And I thought, well, no,
I did notice that.
LGBTQI+.
Right. Well, I thought Q stood for questioning.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever heard that.
It's been queer.
Well, the word queer for many years, yeah, but for many years that was considered socially unacceptable as a term.
They're taking it back.
Except not too long ago, I was watching an episode of 1975 Match Game.
Yeah, so it's very interesting.
And one of the answers, there was like 3 of the celebrities used that word as their answer, and I thought, wow, I didn't think that was ever out there. That was about as bad as when Red Fox came out with the N-word. So Sanford and Son.
So, Carol, I want to move on to you. I got to listen to your show on Monday. You were unfortunately out yesterday. How dare you? Because there was so much to be said. And
what a convenient time to be out.
And one of the things that kept coming up over and over and over was the tax issue. It's a taxpayer-funded facility. Well, then yesterday I start seeing people put drag queens pay taxes too. So is it a pendulum thing? Is it? I don't know. What do you think?
Your original question was something about LGBT rights, and I don't think anybody...
Well, that's what we were going to talk about in the second segment. But anyway, we can go. Let's just
let the
conversation take us where we take it.
I think there are a lot of people conflating LGBT rights with this issue. This is a totally separate issue in my book, and it shows a colossal lack of judgment on the part of some people at the library and the fraternity. I heard the gentleman that you spoke to. I thought they were very articulate. I was very empathetic to their cause. Many of the people who called my show didn't even think there should be a gay fraternity on campus. They're actually late to the party because gay fraternity was established way back when, and I think that anybody deserves to have a support group and friends around them, etc. And I think LGBT. I don't think anybody wants to deny anybody any rights in this community. Nobody I know does. I certainly don't. However, when you have a public facility, you do have public funding going to that facility. I think it's a colossal lack of judgment when you put something like Drag Queen Storytime targeted to 3 to 6-year-olds. Sorry, I think that is a lack of judgment right there. And the library did promote it. I mean, in their book talk. I think everybody has a right to do what they want to do, yes. And I tell people all the time, if you don't like the programming here, just turn it off or go somewhere else, etc. So they do have a right for that. However, I do think it's a lack of judgment on the part of some people, and I do think that there are many people in the community. A library should be at least somewhat reflective of community values to a certain degree, and I don't think that this does reflect what a lot of people feel. Now, the turnout last night at the meeting obviously was the other way, but I think there are many people, as you know, some people call them the silent majority. They're just not people who are going to be activists who get out there. But I believe that the council members, and of course I believe Mayor Robideau heard from those people, which stimulated his eventual statement. Whether the statement was right or wrong, I don't know. But I don't want to conflate LGBT rights with a specific program.
Okay, so Stafford, I want to ask, because yesterday when we did talk to the guys in here from the fraternity, the one thing that they were not super passionate about is we said, look, if it doesn't happen at the library and some other place steps up and wants to host it, they seem to be perfectly fine with it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people volunteer for that. I got to address something that was just said, though. How is there a lack of judgment? Are you implying that the drag queens that would be reading to the kids are somehow predators?
No, I'm not implying that at all. There you go.
Okay, so how is it a lack of judgment?
It's a controversial issue.
It's a controversial.
This is a taxpayer-funded facility.
So is the Cajun Dome, and the Apollo Ball is held there.
Not for 3 and 6-year-olds.
Not for 3.
So there's a danger of exposing kids to drag queens? Is that what you're saying?
I have a real problem, though. I don't care who's on this show with that word of descriptive behavior being associated with people who are just people. It's two completely different issues. And I'm going to tell you this. Just because somebody disagrees doesn't mean that they think somebody is some abhorrent whatever.
Well, thanks, Bernie, because
how do you where's the disagreement?
Offends me.
Where's the disagreement? Where do you justify the I don't think kids should be around drag queens? How do you justify it to yourself?
I am not saying that. That is not what I just said.
Okay.
You said something about pedophilia. Did you not?
I said are they I didn't say pedophilia, but I said, are they dangerous?
You intimated that I thought they were pedophiles. I'm not saying that at all.
No, and you said that it's a lack of judgment to put 3 to 6-year-olds in front of a drag queen.
I said it's a lack of judgment for a public facility to have something like this that could raise the ire of a good section of the community which supports them with tax dollars.
Okay.
It's a boneheaded idea to really aggravate a lot of people in the community who the next time your tax comes up could vote against
my
it.
tax?
I'm talking from a PR standpoint, the library's tax.
Yeah. So I want to point out a couple of things real quick. First off, one of the things that kind of got glossed over a couple weeks ago was the report from Pennsylvania that the Catholic Church sent pedophile priests down to Lafayette.
We're gonna talk about LGBT,
Good
right?
Lord.
We'll talk about more.
Okay.
Let's just talk about specifically this. Do you think the library thing? Obviously, you're in disagreement that the library either. What I got from Carol's statement is they almost like they could have expected that there was going to be some sort of backlash. That's the judgment part.
That's fine. There are books on the shelf at the library that some in society would consider dangerous, right? We don't remove them. We don't take away people's ability to make their decisions, right? That's not what we stand for. And in fact, it's against the law to go out and do that kind of stuff.
All right, let's take a go ahead, wrap up.
I personally believe this is a completely volunteer event, and it could have been left alone. People could have talked about it all they want. The mistake that was made yesterday was Joel opening his mouth and coming out and saying that it shouldn't be, that he's going to try to pressure somehow to stop it. That is wrong, period. These are volunteers. We're number 48 in the United States for child reading, right? And now we've got somebody who wants to go volunteer to read to kids, and we're trying to shut it down because we don't like the way that they dress.
I will say on the part of the organizers who they said multiple times, we didn't expect this to really happen this way because it was our first day of school and we were kind of worried about other things. In talking to them, and Bernie and I didn't, and I don't know what your perception was, it didn't seem like what they were trying to do was to make this movement that has sort of happened with them. But the first thing I thought when I saw Joel's release was, oh my gosh, this is something the ACLU looks for.
Yep.
And I think that's the worrying part about it.
They could have had it anywhere else.
And you have 45 seconds left for your time.
I'd like to defer to a caller.
All right, let's take some calls. 232-1542. We're going to continue this conversation on. You're on with the Wingin Wednesday panel. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't understand what we don't understand about teaching children. Train them up in a way they should go. This is not teaching a good behavior.
Oh, wow.
I think well, what do you think it is, man? You're going to teach these children that this is an acceptable practice for them to grow up and do.
It is acceptable.
That's exactly what I'm saying, because it is part of it is a taught behavior, and you're teaching bad stuff in a public library.
That's scientifically inaccurate.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go to line. Let's go to one more line. 232-1542. If you want to join the conversation here on Wingin' It Wednesday, go ahead.
Man, the discrimination is the reason that this was such a big issue.
Agreed.
Do you all not understand that? Stafford, thank you for actually speaking some truth on this.
Thank you.
And look, I don't normally agree with the things you say. I'm a straight white guy, kids, family, but I have gay friends. And you can take the LGBT thing completely out of it, but you can't discriminate against drag queens. I mean, there would never be an issue if that was never brought up by Mr. Robideau.
All right, thanks.
It's also censorship, right? Are we going to sit here and say that we should get the government to come in and censor people because of the way that they dress?
The library makes choices about who they allow onto their facility. They don't let political activities.
You can go check out Mein Kampf at the library right now.
Who cares?
Okay, there are things
that are there. I'm totally open to all books being there. This is a special kind of program by an outside group. And they could have had it on campus. Why didn't they have it on campus?
Can you check out a Stormy Daniels?
Let's just relegate. Let's just go relegate them to someplace else, right? Let's keep them off of our areas.
Anybody out of anything. Let's take a break. I just think this is a program that's could be better served somewhere else.
On the mention of Stormy Daniels, that's the end of segment 1. We are going to come back because I saw a lot of what we were talking about. We'll take more calls in the next segment. Some of the comments said this is something that should happen somewhere else. Not Lafayette. We're not Austin. We're going to talk about that and the general atmosphere up next on Wingin' Wednesday. 7:23 now.
We're not.
All right, 7:26. The fact that we're having this conversation and our phone calls, the phones are still lit up. Let's go ahead and take some, please. Go to line 232-1542. Good morning. You're on the Wingin' Wednesday group.
Okay, so can I comment about the library drag queen situation?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so mainly to you, Stafford. I'm a mom. I have young children. I have older children. I have friends who have partaken in that lifestyle, but I also have friends who partake in other lifestyles. And bottom line, the issue is there are certain things that children should not be exposed to, period. You wouldn't want a belligerent drunk, influencing your children, or someone who curses all the time, or a drug dealer, or say a stripper. I find this falls in the same category. There are just some things that young children should not be exposed to. They're not ready for it mentally or emotionally. There's some things that just should not be shared with young children. And I find this situation is exactly that. When we say that this is a slippery slope or dangerous for young children, I mean, I wouldn't take my young boys to the strip club. They're 7 and 4 years old. It's inappropriate.
Wow.
And these things are inappropriate for children this age. There are just certain times in their lives when these discussions can be had, and 3 to 6 years old is not it. This is something that when they get a little older and they can comprehend it, then you have that discussion. But these certain lifestyles just should not be introduced to children at a young age.
All right, thanks.
You're opening doors to them.
All right, so I want to bring up a caller that we got on the first day. On Monday, Bernie and I took some calls, and one of the things was the guy said, look, I'm kind of like the first caller we got. I'm a conservative guy, but ultimately I believe in freedom. I believe in their freedom to do it. I also believe in my freedom not to go. And I think that's when it comes out. 'Cause sometimes I almost feel like, and Warren, you can weigh in on this to start. Sometimes I feel like we would be having the same, like if you just changed some of the details and the story was this was happening in a public school, then I think the outrage might even be more worthy because kids are required to go to school. Do you think that makes it any different?
I think it would make it different, and I also think that that's why so many people are upset with public education today, because they get so many things. Children are being indoctrinated by different things that kind of go against the grain of what parents try to raise their kids to do, whether it's political, religious, anti-religious, or whatever. And but yeah, you're right. If it was different, if it was in the public school, then absolutely the people I think would be outraged, and should have a right to be, because I mean there's some things that you shouldn't be exposed to in schools. Schools are there for education, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean it depends on exactly what it was, but.
Carol, I want to hit on what I talked about going into the break. When I see people say, this is something that has happened everywhere and it's been successful. We know it's happened in New York and Chicago. I think San Francisco's even done it. I can't remember a time it's even happened in New Orleans, much less anywhere else in the South. What do you make of those comments?
I think it has happened in New Orleans. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know about New Orleans, but I do know one is scheduled for Ouachita Parish.
Yeah, currently around the same time.
Mm-hmm. I think Stacy, who just called in, had a very good point. Age-appropriate sorts of things, and the two callers the two gentlemen you had in yesterday morning, made the point that most of the kids don't even relate it to. Well, first of all, everybody's talking about how this is going to show the kids that it's good to be diverse and accepting and all that sort of thing, which I always thought parents did. And most of the people I know train their kids to be loving and kind and, accepting of people who are different from you, that sort of thing. And we do celebrate diversity in this community. I mean, I think we are a very diverse community, and we do celebrate that. But when the two fellas said yesterday morning, the kids don't relate to LGBT, or drag. They just see sparkly stuff and they think it's cute. Well, so that totally destroys the original purpose, was to show them diversity and all that sort of stuff, and all they look at the sparkly
the book
stuff.
was going to be the diversity, unless the character. But
that's the other thing. What are they going to read to them?
I even said I don't know that my kids would know.
Them?
They would think it was a character.
What are they going to read to them?
Teresa Elberson, library director, said that they had not made a decision on what book it would be, and the two gentlemen that joined us yesterday, Jeffrey and Brad, said they had not made the decision either.
Yeah.
Security is obviously also a concern at this as well. Stafford, if this happens, if the event does end up going on, what would you anticipate? Do protesters show up?
I mean, if they do, they're just dumb. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So here's the thing: the perspective of the lady who just called made some. I don't know if she even realizes what she's saying. Those are some really derogatory things to say about people, when the only thing that matters is the content of the book that's being read to them. If this was a woman in a pantsuit and a tie who was reading a book to the kids, nobody would say anything. They're playing dress up to read a book to the kids. My daughter and my son just had a birthday party, and I had to pay money to get somebody to show up to the party dressed up, right?
Like a clown.
Whether it was a clown or a princess or whatever it is, right? We don't have a problem with it if it's a woman in a pantsuit, but all of a sudden a guy puts on a dress, which, mind you,
no, we don't have a problem
recently.
with that.
I've done it for charity, right?
We don't have a problem with.
Well, that explains everything,
Stafford. Great.
We don't have a problem with that.
I actually wore a dress for
people
one
who
for charity.
Do that. We're talking about a taxpayer
money.
And we raise money.
All right.
So look, the point is that the age appropriateness is about the book, and that's the only thing it's about. And to try the library is publicly funded, the universities are partially publicly funded, and for anybody to say, hey, why don't you go do it someplace else, harks back to the idea of, hey, look, you can eat at this restaurant all you want, just do it on the other side, or you can ride this bus or ride the back of it, right? Gender is a protected class, as is race.
That would be in the tradition.
Look, Carol, I appreciate the comments. Let me get mine out, and then you can respond. I would appreciate that. My point is that these kids are just trying to read to kids in a society, in a state where kids need to be read to on a regular basis because of our poor ranking in education, and I applaud them for their volunteerism.
Hey, let's take two more
calls.
calls.
Let me say that this would be in the fine tradition of all the great liberal universities who disinvite conservative speakers on a regular basis.
I think that's wrong too.
and have violent reactions to it. You don't see any violent reaction to this.
Wrap up this one. We'll take a couple calls.
You know, there are people saying that, we're not Austin, we're not San Francisco, we're not New York, and all this, that, and other. By God, has anybody here, have they ever heard of the Apollo, the crew of Apollo? Has anybody ever been to the Apollo Ball?
Many times.
Many times. Well,
Which
I'll
is
bet
highly supported by a lot of people in the
But I never saw a 3 to 6 year old there. I'll promise you that.
Well, neither did I. Did you ever sit at the King's table at the Apollo Ball?
Actually, I've been called out to the Queen.
Well, I'll sit at the King's table one time at the Apollo Ball. So, and my God, if this town is not acceptable of the gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, questionable community, I don't know who the hell is.
All right, let's take a couple more calls. 232-1542. Good morning. You're on Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead.
Good morning. So we're good?
We're good. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Just making sure it was up to me. So look, my conversation point is going to be this, because what I find coming from Jeffrey are disingenuous arguments at best and manipulative at worst with regards to some of his comparisons, and here's why. So he brings up, first of all, the Cajun Dome, the Apollo Ball. Great. The Apollo organization pays for that. It's by invitation only, and it's for adults. It's apples and oranges. Then he brings out if it was a woman in a pantsuit argument. Well, you know what? That woman in a pantsuit, I wouldn't have a problem with as long as she's not trying to expose children to an alternative lifestyle that might not be what those kids have. Now, The flip side of that is, if we don't like it, all we have to do is not go. Because ultimately, while we are using taxpayer dollars for the facility, it's a voluntary event. So, look, could it have been done for an appropriate age group? I think appropriate age group is probably the big thing that has a lot of people upset. You know, target 3 to 6 year olds, target 12 to 15-year-olds, where I've got kids that age that are experiencing this. That's accepting, that's understanding, and that's maybe giving them the material when they need it. But, whether you're religious or whether you believe in evolution, this is something that evolution says for procreation of the species isn't necessarily what, how evolution intended, right? Because until you get to procreation that way, it's not what evolution intended by definition. So, where we are is that we've got public funds going to sponsor this, and it could have been done maybe in a different way, maybe a different age group, but we also can't just completely disrupt the entire thing and say that, those people can't be accepted.
All right.
So that's just my point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a lot of things that were said right there were wrong. I hope he emails, because I'd like to continue the conversation with him online. Homosexuality exists throughout nature. It's all over the place. The Apollo Ball you can buy tickets to, and it's not sponsored by taxpayers. There's no sponsors for this. It's an event at the library that's funded. There's no extra money coming out of anybody's pocket. So I appreciate what you're saying. I hope you email the show. I'd like to continue this conversation offline.
All right, quick up or down vote. Does the event happen? Stafford?
Yes.
Warren?
Probably.
Carol?
I'm sure it is.
All right, well, seems like it's settled. There, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back to talk about the Bell helicopter investment and the big announcement yesterday that that new building at the airport might soon have to have a different sign on it. We'll get into that next on Wingin' It Wednesday. All right, 7:42, and the phone lines are still lit up from the conversation we started this hour with. 232-1542. Get a couple more in this morning. You're on Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead with your comments.
Thanks for taking the call.
Yes.
I'm just curious. Anybody know the percentage of drag queens in our population? Probably like 1/1,000,000%, right?
I'm not sure. I don't know that answer.
To check dragqueendemographics.com.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the homophobes are about 25%. So maybe this is about trying to educate about homophobia. There seems to be a lot of concern for the children and all this. 1 in 5 kids don't know where their next meal is coming from in America. Louisiana's ranked at the bottom of statistics for almost every child statistic there is. Where's all the concern about that? People feign this outrage about a gay person maybe being, next to their child, and there's way bigger problems. Thanks for taking the call.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
your call. Someone did write in the depth of the black hole of Facebook yesterday. They listed all these other things: drainage problems, the votes we have at the end of the year. If everyone was as passionate, we might have higher than a 12% voter turnout.
Yeah,
Let's take one more call at 232-1542. Go ahead with your comment.
Hey, good morning, everyone. How are you guys?
Morning.
Good.
Are we still on the LGBT?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Let me have just a comment for a minute. These people who call in and those of us who believe that this is some type of lifestyle, I think we need to rethink something. Our people who are lesbian and gays are born this way, and they didn't have a choice in it. Just as I was born white. People that are born black, these people are born this way. This is not a lifestyle. Secondly, those that dress up in drag, they dress up in drag because it's a celebration for them. They celebrate because they've been oppressed, just as other people have been oppressed in our country. And listen, I'm a long-time listener of KPEL. I'm a conservative, born and raised here in South Louisiana. My son is gay, and he was born that way. I didn't raise him that way. I didn't ask him to be that way. He was born this way. I think people need to rethink what they're saying on the topic of the library. I agree with Stafford. Listen, it's voluntary. If you want to go, go. If you don't want to go, don't go. These people, our LGBT people, are not they're not pedophiles. Although I'm not saying that, listen, anybody can be a pedophile. Anyone. The priests are pedophiles. You lump these people into this group. That's an incorrect statement.
Well, but I think some people do that. Not everybody does that. And thank you for you. And
you're right.
And that's what I wanted to say for both sides. And thank you, sir. Hold on. Because I want both sides to remember, because people never remember this. Because it's easy for everybody to get their opinion. Disagreement. Wait. Now, disagreement does not equate to hate. Just because you disagree doesn't mean you hate someone or you think they're pedophiles. Now, some people have expressed that stuff on Facebook. I think that's stupid. But just because people are disagreeing doesn't mean they hate. That does not equate to hate. This gentleman is saying something right here, sir, and thank you for calling the show, that a lot of people agree with. But then there may be people that disagree with this man, but that's their thoughts and their personal part of it, too.
And there's no right. There's no right answer.
Here's the thing, right? Because for the person who is gay, they know what it is for them, and you can still believe opposite of what they believe.
I think that most of us have either family members or friends who are gay. We're not talking about LGBT, and that's what I've been saying all along. Do not conflate that with this specific issue.
That's not fair to people. And you're putting motives on people that maybe don't belong there. Now, some people do because they throw it into the conversation on Facebook.
Bernie, there are cross-dressers who are straight.
Yeah.
Lots of cross-dressers are straight.
Yeah.
So this particular program targeted to 3 to 6 year olds that I think is really unfortunate.
And there have been a lot of different, I don't like this about it, I don't like this, or I like this, but I don't like this part. Sir, thank you so much for your call this morning. I appreciate it. And, the thing is I think people, if you want to know, go ask the person who is gay.
Face to face, on the phone, not on Facebook comments.
Right?
Stafford, jump in on this one.
Swamp.
Hey, man, first off, thank you for having the courage to call in. Keep loving your son and keep preaching, because you're the type of person that's going to change hearts. And I appreciate you calling in, and I appreciate your perspective.
But just because somebody disagrees, Stafford, it doesn't mean they hate someone.
But we've had this conversation off air, and I don't agree with that statement.
And that's okay.
And it's okay to disagree with that.
That's exactly right.
Because there's no right answer.
Don't y'all hate each other because you disagree.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Wingin' Wednesday.
There are right answers and there are wrong answers.
Okay, on this specific one, here's the reason it's a debate. Because what the ultimate outcome is it's either going to make one side happy or one side mad. That's why there's no
And what bothers me about it is, okay, so if I say I disagree with someone, that means I automatically hate you? Well, that's a crock.
Well, that's the specific reason that I brought up the university.
I don't hate anybody. So are you telling me that my transgender nephew, I hate him?
Nope.
Well, but some people on Facebook do, and I don't know where the pedophilia comes in to the conversation.
I've said it multiple times on the show so far, and I'll say it again. If you don't want this to happen, if you think that 3 to 6 year olds shouldn't be around drag queens,
then you don't bring your kids. I get that what you have said. Many people have said that too.
Then say why, because this is a reading expert.
But people have said on Facebook too.
Okay.
And some people don't. That's true.
Just own why you don't think kids should be around drag queens.
Well, and I'd like for a lot of people on the left side to own why they discriminate against conservative speakers.
That's called whataboutism, and it deflects from the actual argument.
Thank you.
And I've already said, I've explained this to you multiple times.
Oh, thank you. Well, explain it to me again, Stafford.
But people, just because you explain it doesn't mean they have to believe it.
I might be mentally deficient, and I might need schooling by Stafford.
Well, I'm here to help.
Thank you so much.
I'm volunteer 101.
I love it. I love it.
Class is in session here.
Yeah,
all right.
ding.
Oh, look, there was the bell.
We're going to take a quick break here.
And then can we Manafort?
Let's Manafort ourselves.
We're going to Manafort.
We're going to talk about the Bell helicopter thing in the next hour. We're running short on time, but the Manafort Cohen thing is important.
That's huge.
Stay with us. We're back next. 7:51 here at Wingin' It Wednesday. Yesterday, we lost one of our panelists. I don't know if he went to go grab security.
Well, he kind of does what he does, right?
You know,
he's like,
Warren walks in here.
I might need a bag of chips.
Yeah. Anyway, Warren will be back. I want to talk about yesterday. We found out that Paul Manafort, the former campaign chair for the Trump campaign, found guilty, convicted on 8 counts, 10 of which were a mistrial. It will go back to trial in D.C. And on the same day, Michael Cohen, former personal attorney of Trump, he's not going to go to trial because he pled guilty to 8 counts. A lot of it has to do with campaign finance and that sort of thing. Carol, a lot of people, even folks who have so far historically been all about Trump, have said, could this be the end, or at least asked them that question.
Well,
what are your thoughts?
It could be the end of Mueller's investigation because this is all storm and fury signifying nothing. Judge Napolitano, whom I respect deeply, and he is a libertarian, and he doesn't, held any quarter with anybody. The Manafort, many of these charges were investigated 8 years ago by the feds and by the Justice Department, yes, and he was exonerated. And who was the lead prosecutor? Rod Rosenstein. So that would lend credence to the fact that this is more political than anything else. Did he do some bad things? Yes, but it doesn't relate to the Mueller investigation. So that's one thing. In terms of Cohen, he wasn't even charged with a crime, and he did a plea deal. He hasn't formally been charged.
No, he was never indicted.
That's exactly right. His big mistake was hiring a Hillary sycophant like Lanny Davis to get him to plead to crimes that he hadn't even been charged with and he may not have committed because, according to one FEC commissioner and according to another legal eagle whom I respect deeply, Mark Levin, who formed the Landmark Legal Foundation, a candidate spends this is a quote, from the Federal Elections Commission laws, a candidate spends his own money or corporate money for an event that occurred not as a result of a campaign, and it's not a campaign expenditure. So these things may have been done as a private deal between Cohen and Trump, but it had nothing to do with the campaign and was not a campaign violation, according to one FEC commissioner and Mark Levin, whom I respect.
Okay, Stafford, jump in.
If you want to listen to the goalposts get moved, tune into the Ross Report from 2 to 4
every
day on KPEL.
Well, there you go again, don't you?
Here's the modus operandi of everybody who's been here, because Sean Hannity spent last night talking about Hillary Clinton's emails. It's the same thing over again. We've had another person associated with Trump, another confidant who's pled guilty. We have somebody who's been found guilty. And then we go, it has nothing to do with Trump. Cohen specifically yesterday said, I was directed by a federal candidate for president. He was not directed by Bernie Sanders, and he was not directed by the Green Party. So here's what's happening. We're going to continue to deflect. He's going to keep saying all the best people. We know that you look at the turnover rate, you look at some of the people that have been out of there, he associates himself with criminals. The guy, look, I will still concede that there is a possibility that he did not work directly with the Russians to get himself elected. We know that the Russians worked to get him elected. Whether he had knowledge of it or not, I don't know. I think the next shoe to drop is going to be Jared Kushner or Don Jr. Either way, he surrounds himself with criminals. He makes bad decisions. And I applaud Cohen for saying, because he came out this morning and said, I won't take a plea deal. So I think he's very interested in telling the truth. I think he's going to get Mueller's going to get access to him at some point. Currently, just so we can be factual about this, Mueller has said he doesn't need him. So we'll just see what happens.
Warren, as someone who, you're like our world affairs correspondent here on the panel, as someone who's been overseas, served in the military, the question came up this morning, if we saw this happen in another country, like Venezuela, would we think the government was unraveling, or would we have questions about that leader if we pull our people out of it?
Hell no! Look,
yes.
My God, how many times have you seen this stuff happen over and over and over and over again? And talk about the president of the United States associates with criminals. Hell, I associate with criminals. Stafford associates with criminals. Everybody in here does. You know, and the deal is that. So what did Manafort do? You got found guilty of tax evasion and that stuff. What is Cohen? Cohen has also been found guilty of theft and perjury and some other things in the past. So look, what does that have to do? I don't know, and I really don't care. What I worry about right now is is that I worry about the coup that this group is refusing to accept a legally elected president of the United States. They're doing everything they can to undermine this government, to overturn it. You got people out there in the streets running around in mass like the Ku Klux Klan used to do with clubs and waving communist flags and hollering, we want more socialism. We want Adolf Hitler coming in this country, a rebirth of him, and on and on and on. That's what bothers me. You got the strongest economy we have had in a half a century. You've got the black unemployment is at a historic low. Hispanic unemployment is at a historic low. The gross national products are up. The stock market is going through the roof compared to what it was on election night when they were saying, what is the fallout from this going to be tomorrow? The Dow Jones is already down over 700. Oh, the world is coming to an end. But what we have seen is a rebirth, and that the swamp will never be drained because it is so deep.
Indeed. And by the way, Michael Cohen did take a plea deal. That's number one. Number two, if the Russians were trying to help Trump, why did they supply the dossier to the Hillary Clinton campaign trashing Trump? Hello.
Thanks, guys. You are what makes this station great. We appreciate your opinions.
Thank you.
When are we going to lunch? Remember our guy?
Waiting on him.
Okay, so he's got to get back to us.
Still in.
Okay,
planning on a lunch.
I'm totally in for that lunch.
All right, 7:58.
By the way, anybody who wants questions for the sheriff, they can email them to the Ross Report at KPEL 965 because we're having them on tomorrow afternoon at 2.
Awesome. All right. Well, heard some stuff about goalposts, but if there are goalposts happening in the Ross Report, you, ma'am, are a Hall of Famer.
They're mobile.
All right, 7:58 now. We're back after this. All right, let's see.